We'll hold you to it, fingers crossed. And we'll have to see how things shake out here in this best of 5. Spawning in the bottom left-hand side of Death Aura LE in the blue, it's our Terran player from Brazil and Archangel Gaming. His name is Kelazhur.
And up in the top left-hand side of the map, we have the red Zerg player. He is going to be our Brazilian Erik. Now, just to talk about Erik really quickly, because I think most people are going to be familiar with Kelazhur, Diego, whatever you want to call him. He has been absolutely like a force to be reckoned with in the international scene for a while now. Erik is definitely one of those names that's been coming up a lot more lately, and the Latin American scene used to be special Kelazhur, and then Cham kind of edged his way in, and Jim Rising was kind of there in the background. Now it really has become special Kelazhur, Cham, and Erik is inching his way into that top 4 and trying to get that 3rd spot. Probably a lot of people would say over Cham, but I think it's been really, really cool to see him kind of shaking things up in a region that it feels like has been very, very stable in that top 3 or top 4 for a long time now.
No question. And the payoffs are huge as well. We talked earlier about how small the Latin American region is overall. You know, Europe, we're talking about 10, 15, 20 players all gunning for a jumble of those top 20 spots. And here in Latin America, as you said, 3, maybe 4 or 5 players at the most fighting over those spots. But that doesn't change the fact that the winners are going to walk away with a huge majority of the cash right now. Of course, the first place prize here in the DreamHack Masters Latin America tournament is $5 grand immediately, and of course a coveted spot in those season finals. Second place, all the way down to 3,500, and it drops off considerably after that for 3rd and 4th place. So there is so much for these players to fight for right now, and the rewards for them sort of upping their game and competing with the Kelazhurs and specials of the world, the reward for that is incredible.
Yeah, and I actually want to really quickly mention that the EPT points you get also from these kind of finishes, those are a massive deal, because the thing about how those end up working out is that EPT points will be used for seeding. And by the way, we have a couple of Lings going to be poking forward over here, trying to catch like a Reaper out of position to snipe off the SCV building the command center, but looks like Kelazhur is super ready, so that's all I need to mention for that. But I was going to say, like, the way EPT points work is that if you have better seeding, you're more likely to make it further into the tournaments that you end up facing off against. So you're going to probably get more EPT points. Like, having EPT points early on in the year makes it easier to get EPT points later on in the year, and it kind of snowballs and spirals. So getting 35, even for the player that gets knocked out over here, 70 if you win this match at least, that's a pretty big deal. That really does affect how things end up shaking out later on.
Yeah, certainly one of those hidden bonuses of the event, you know, that's sort of off the spreadsheet where you can see the money, you can see the points, but what it doesn't show you is your advantageous position in the bracket later on. So big competition here, and no surprises, we're seeing some big plays from both these players. As the 3rd for Erik goes down, back home in Kelazhur's base, we can already see him working on what promises to be his first real harassment this game. He's got a fusion core going down.
Yeah, Fusion Core is going to be a nice little touch here. That's something that a lot of Zerg players are very familiar with at this point. They know how to defend against it a lot of the time, but it is still about execution and what the follow-up is going to be. So Kelazhur, we'll see how many battlecruisers he actually ends up committing to here. Gonna start up Cloak because the Overlord is in his main base right now, scouting out the tech lab on the starport. So he's trying to make this look like a Banshee opening. In fact, he even starts up a Banshee right now, because it's just a little bit cheaper, and he's hoping to kill this Overlord before he gets anywhere near the Fusion Core. It's so close, but I think it barely does not catch wind of this, so Erik might be thrown off by that.
I think he absolutely might. Now, of course, the Banshee did start a bit late. Erik might be expecting it to already be on the map, or at least be a little closer to completion. I'm not sure if it's going to fool him, But it's definitely still a possibility. So hard to get into the minds of these players and read what they're doing. Kelazhur, though, doing everything correctly behind this. Ooh, oh, a nice dodge there by those Hellions, saving himself in front of the Lings. And now they're going to be trapped behind these minerals, but that should mean they're going to get some really advantageous trades against these Lings. And this is about as good as Kelazhur could have hoped for. The problem is, you really don't want to lose these Hellions in the early game, though, because you need critical mass later when the battlecruiser pops out.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Kelazhur is actually adding on multiple factories. He's looking to go into a mech follow-up entirely. So those Hellions are going to be, like you said, important because you do want to get enough of them that you continue to harass at the same time the battlecruiser pops out. But you can already see Erik, as soon as he had scouted out that tech lab on the starport and he saw that it was researching Cloak, he threw down the spore crawlers. So he threw down the spore crawlers almost like a solid minute earlier than he needed to. I actually do feel like he kind of did fall for it. Kelazhur got away with it, did a little bit economic damage just with a psych out there. But now the battlecruiser teleports on in, sees how much damage it can get done inside that main base.
Yeah, and so far, not that bad at all. 5 drones, maybe a 6th drone gonna go down here. Overlord softened up, Queen's now out of position, and that's gonna, normally, that would allow Kelazhur to like move into the natural with those Hellions. But of course, since he lost the Hellions earlier, he's not able to do a dual-pronged harass. I will say though, 6 drone kills for 1 battlecruiser, and the battlecruiser's still alive, that's a pretty darn good trade for our Terran player. I've seen battlecruiser harasses that don't do that much damage that are still successful.
Yeah, and oh man, this is actually, I really feel like a tough situation for a lot of Zerg players. I'm not entirely sure what the look or like what they use to gauge whether or not they think there's more battlecruisers coming, but Aspire definitely indicates to me that Erik is probably expecting more battlecruisers. We'll see what he ends up making out of them. If he makes corruptors or something to help deal with the battlecruisers, there's a chance that he overmakes them because there's no more battlecruisers coming. But if he makes mutas, that actually might end up being a really sick response to this mech play.
Yeah, I think Erik's very, very concerned about more battlecruisers. He's built not only a Hydralisk Den, but also that Spire that you've been talking about. So as the battlecruiser moves into his 3rd base here, Erik drops his 4th base and is working on all the usual upgrades you'd expect from a Zerg player. Melee, missiles, and Baneling speed here, setting himself up for a good ground game, whether or not he uses that Spire. But I think you're right, it is going to be Mutalisks out of that Spire. Look at the gas he's banked up, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Have to wait and see. The Spire's about to finish up over here. He's trying to go for these little counterattacks. I like that. He's going to confirm. All right, there are so many Hellions and siege tanks out. It's actually not going to be the Cyclones being made immediately, which, you know, still could come a little bit later on, but the siege tanks coming out in larger and larger numbers. We're not just seeing like 2 or 3 siege tanks. We're seeing 6, maybe more siege tanks that are getting set up. This is going to be the sort of slower mech style coming out from Kelazhur, not that battle mech that we oftentimes see.
Battle mech is very popular with battlecruisers as well, just because the battlecruisers have fairly low mobility, so you want to sort of counterplay that with the Cyclone Hellion push. But there's nothing wrong with going more traditional mech style with a lot of those tanks to zone things out. Let's see if a Baneling waddle by here can get any damage done, but very similar to the games we saw earlier, these Banelings without speed, but oh, Kelazhur, a little late on the pole here, buddy. 8, 9, whew, not an auspicious play there from Kelazhur.
Yeah, pretty nice bit of damage there, and well, it doesn't kill a missile turret or anything, but the missile turret had just now started, and oh, as the mutas come across the map, it looks like Kelazhur's caught wind of it. He's got 3 Thors on the way, which I think will be popping right around the time the mutas are actually heading over the 3rd or into the main base. So as Kelazhur pokes in at the front door, tries to clean up through this creep spread, the mutas, well, they're just gonna go after this 3rd base, knocking out the supply depot wall. It's cute, and I think it's playing a lot of respect to Kelazhur because he actually doesn't have an answer at the 3rd just yet.
Yeah, very fortunate for Kelazhur that Erik has decided to be very cautious and very trepidatious with those Mutalisks. He doesn't want to run the risk of them dying immediately, but of course, as you said, Kelazhur just now finally those Thors finding, and there's no damage here in the 3rd. So once this missile turret goes down, which it should, there it is, the Thors will be here to chase it away, but 7 more SCVs getting mowed down, and now, after losing 16 SCVs this game, Kelazhur finds himself way behind. Let's see if he can trade some damage.
Yeah, he's gonna be able to find a couple of drones over here. I don't actually think this is too bad of a spot just yet for Kelazhur, but oh my god, the Banelings do manage to find some connections with those Hellions behind the mineral line. Still trades out decently well. 7 workers killed, not bad. And at the end of the day, Kelazhur has a 4th base. As a meching Terran player, I mean, the 4th base is massive to be able to set that up. Has enough Thors, he can probably spread them out between the bases and deal with the mutaflock. I actually don't think this is too bad. I think this is a pretty nice spot for Kelazhur.
Yeah, I think he's in decent shape. My concern right now for Kelazhur is this switch to Lurker tech. Lurkers can be very scary, even against mech play, just because they're incredible damage. And once they have those adaptive talents, they can dig a little bit further. It sounds a little weird to say, but their mobility is a little surprising sometimes, where you'll have 3 or 4 at your third base, and before you can even notice it, they've uprooted, moved further in, and are able to cut off one of your movement paths between the natural and the third. So I'm interested to see if Kelazhur spots this lurker den, and then Fear Dragon, if he does, what's an appropriate Terran response if you've got mech out against lurkers?
I mean, I oftentimes feel like we end up seeing the default answers like, okay, we'll get your tank sieged up in a nice spot because you'll outrange the lurkers and everything, but it does get complicated, like you said, when you have adaptive talents, and it really does slow things down quite a bit. So a little bit tough to say. We'll see where Kelazhur decides to take it for now, but a lot of siege tanks are set up over here. I feel like Kelazhur is taking a bit more damage versus the mutas than I thought he would, because he wasn't spreading out his Thors as much, but now he's finally starting to spread them out between the different bases, has enough coverage, and I think Erik agrees he's just going to back off for now.
Yeah, one thing we've seen over the last couple minutes of this game is that Erik had been previously ahead in income by a considerable amount. He had that 4th base up quite early and cranked out a ton of drones because there wasn't a ton of pressure from Kelazhur outside of that battlecruiser harass. And now that we've reached the mid-game, it's swung back in Kelazhur's favor just slightly, where he's got his 4 bases up, he's got his 5th base on the way now, and he's got his economy humming along. But now I think very shortly we're going to see it swinging back in Erik's favor as this 5th base is up and running. But a nice Blue Flame Hellion run by. This is exactly what meching Terran players need to do, man. Keep the pressure on, sacrifice little bits of your army, and make sure that economically your opponent can't keep up with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is the difference between the I'm gonna turtle up kind of Terran mech player that you'll see on like the NA ladder or something and Masters 2, and someone who's top notch and you're always being active. They're using the Hellions, the pure mineral army units, to try and find bits and pieces of damage and continuing to poke, continuing to prod, while they build up that big, scary Doomsday army behind it all.
Yeah, a lot of players will pop into my stream and ask me, oh, Creighton, my opponent had 13 Thors. I don't know, there's nothing Zerg can do against 13 Thors. And the answer is, of course, yeah, you're right. There's nothing you can do about 13 Thors. Don't let your opponent get to 13 Thors.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, the Hellions are going to get caught here by these lurkers, though. And the Mutalisks in the main base here actually doing a decent amount of damage before they're driven away by one of those Thors. But wow, Erik being a lot more bold than I would expect with these Mutalisk flocks.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. I really feel like at this point, I kind of understand if you were going for a move out soon, that you wouldn't have all your Thors, you know, in your main base or anything. But like, I think leaving a Thor in your main is really might be a better idea here. There's a decent number of mutas. We have 11 more mutas on the way. Erik is very clearly committing to making some of that muta harass work. Having one Thor, it doesn't completely just shut down muta harass, but it complicates it. You don't want to clump them up. You have to add a lot more APM and control to make it work.
You know what's fascinating? Kelazhur's been trying to harass the entire game, but he's actually lost more Hellions and Hellbats than Erik has drones. This is a really nice push, though. Lings on top of everything. The Thor's going down. 11 SCVs, that 3rd base, forced out of position. The Mutalisks are going to snipe it down. 2 command centers exploding on the same screen. Oh my goodness gracious, Fear Dragon. Have Kelazhur's chances of winning this just disappeared?
He's actually down to like 3 command centers. He doesn't have any of those spare command centers. One's going to be finishing up now, but this is actually really brutal. Erik has basically been able to take the map. Yes, there's been some Hellion harassment here and there, but Erik has been at a pretty stable worker count. I don't think that he's really dropped below like 68 workers. And now he's got 333 on the way. He's going to be getting ahead in those upgrades a little bit after those finish up. And he's just adding on everything he can. He just knows that all I have to do is continue finding these little openings, magic boxes the mutas over the Thors. He's going to end up losing a lot of mutas over here. This is maybe not the best of trades, but he does it at the same time as the lurkers move forward, which, oh my god, that's a really ballsy move forward.
It's a very ballsy move here, getting those lurkers on top. Oh, a bit of miscontrol here from Erik. I'm not sure what that Viper's doing, but it's going to get destroyed by these Cyclones. Poor Viper. Bit of miscontrol and mispathing from Erik, rather. But he's adding on more Vipers. He's adding on 16 Hydras behind this to rebuild his lurker count. Why do you think he moved his lurkers so aggressively into the 3rd base there?
I think he must have believed that there weren't as many siege tanks over there. And I really thought he was going to move in along the left-hand side and be a little bit more cautious about it. But man, he dove right in there. And it didn't really work out. I do feel like that gives Kelazhur a little bit more breathing room here, as the Hellions are also pulling back some of the mutas and everything. Creep spread is honestly not as far ahead as I would have liked. I gotta credit Erik. He's doing a lot of other stuff, so there's probably a good reason for that. But I do think he could have actually spread a bit more of that creep, had a bit more advanced warning about some of these Hellion harassments, and be able to shut them down a bit quicker.
Yeah, every drone counts now. Granted, he's not going to have any real larva problems, I don't think, with 6 bases down and enough queens to inject every one of them at least one time. But it's still not great to lose every drone possible, because it's just more and more minerals that you don't want to spend on rebuilding that economy. Greater Spire now on the way from Erik. Broodlords, the right choice against Thors here?
It's a complicated question. Depends on who you ask. Because some Zerg players will be like, oh my god, like Thor just annihilate Broodlords. And some Zerg players will be like, well, no, the Broodlings just prevent it. But we might actually see a really, really nice fight over here for Erik before that. Because again, Blinding Clouds, you knock out the siege tanks, and suddenly, yeah, the lurkers don't actually have anything to worry about. They shut down mining at the space at the same time. There's some mutas coming in from the left-hand side, looking like they're actually just going to reinforce this army. It's the mutas actually coming forward. And if these lurkers take care of the Thors, yeah, there's actually nothing to deal with the mutas. They can just go after the command centers.
It's funny, you wouldn't think of the best damage upgrade in the game for Zerg being that Adaptive Talons quick burrow upgrade for the lurkers, but that is really helping them get down and fire off a couple of their shots before the Thors are really able to get more than 1 or 2 volleys on. So Erik still diving incredibly deep with these lurkers, but the strategy seems to be paying off for him here, Fear Dragon.
Oh yeah, he's completely resetting all the Thor counts, and with all the Thors being picked off, even if all of the lurkers get killed off right here, the mutas are actually in high enough numbers. There's 2 Liberators and 10 Siege Tanks. Those 2 Liberators are not going to kill the mutas. And after that, the Thors are so far away from finishing. I think that's it. There's nothing that kills the mutas right now, and they just get to go ham.
Oh, jeez. And I'm concerned now that, of course, Erik can just punch that. He can enact the Sand People strategy and make sure that his mutas will come back, and in greater numbers, too. Because look at him. There's more in the 3rd base. They're moving into the natural now. And as you said, nothing left for Kelazhur that shoots upward. Unfortunately, his air damage is down to just almost 0. In fact, he's only got 3 cores out on the map and a couple missile turrets. This is really rough for Kelazhur here, the favorite to win the series.
I mean, Creighton, I'm going to level with you here, man. Kelazhur's not in this game anymore. GG. Erik takes the first game of this best of 5. Vindicates me a little bit.
Attaboy.
Showing that he does have what it takes to knock down Kelazhur, but I do think got really, really close there. Like, I think there were actually, it wasn't like Erik just totally took control of the entire game.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. You know, we've seen a couple, I think all of our previous series today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fear Dragon, we have not seen a game 3 yet today in all of our best of 3s. They were all 2-0s today. And some of them...
Good news is that we will guarantee a game 3 in this best of 5.
I wonder if you're going to call it out. Yeah. So a couple of other series, yeah, as we said, we've had a couple of games where we've described players as looking lost or hopeless or outmatched. This game's certainly not the case. I think Kelazhur and Erik really sparring here, going toe-to-toe, and Erik just somehow boxing Kelazhur in and managing to sort of make sure he didn't leave his base, keeping him on board, and really trimming him back just a whole lot. So interested to see here what happens on Eternal Empire for game number 2, another map these players are very familiar with.
Yeah, I think honestly one of the big things that I felt Kelazhur didn't handle as well was the muta harass. I think again, having one of those Thors in the main base, as long as you know you're not moving out in the immediate future, leaving one of those Thors at each one of those bases, because he had 3 Thors, he had 3 bases, but the mutas were just diving into the main, and all of the Thors are at the natural or the 3rd base. So he ended up just taking a lot of losses, expecting the missile turrets to cover him, and also just that the mutas wouldn't try and dive in. He was hoping that the ground area in front of the main would just prevent the mutas from coming in, but there was a big dead airspace he was able to move in from. So Erik still found damage, and I feel like it really just delayed things. It halted Kelazhur out, because otherwise you want to go for a push before all of, the big Zerg attacks are coming your way. And I feel like Erik was just able to get too much breathing room. Getting up to that many lurkers, getting up to that situation, that's where things I felt like fell apart for Kelazhur. I'm expecting that Kelazhur will either go for more of like a bio style again this game, or he's probably going to try and address that issue. He's usually a pretty adaptive player.
He definitely is. He's certainly not a player where you can walk in and say, okay, this is definitely what he's going to do. He tried this game 1. He'll try the same thing game 3 through 5. Very jazzed to see what Kelazhur has to offer here on Eternal Empire LE. So let's introduce our players spawning in the bottom left-hand side of Eternal Empire LE. It is our red Zerg player representing Brazil and currently teamless. His name is Erik.
And up in the top right-hand side of the map, the blue Terran player, he is Kelazhur, aka Kelazhur.
Now, Pure Dragon, I won't lie to you. One of my favorite Kelazhur unique strats that you rarely see from other players, but that Kelazhur really loves to do is a triple racks Reaper play, where he'll build 3 racks and then just crank dozens of Reapers out. Especially against Zerg players, it is brutally hard, and a player with Kelazhur's micro can make it last as long as he wants it to. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be treated to that today, but I really do hope he pulls it out at some point in this series because it's such a fun build to watch, a fun build to execute, and man, it feels good when you win.
No, I fully agree with you, actually, Creighton. And I think that during the 3 Rex Reaper era, where most people think of Beyond, right? Beyond was the big guy who kind of was the image of 3 Rex Reaper. I actually feel like each region had one player that set themselves apart in their 3 Rex Reaper control. They were actually just not like a little bit better, they were substantially better at 3 Rex Reaper than most of their peers for their region. I feel like for Korea, it was Beyond. For Europe, it was Euthermal. And for North America, and a bit of Latin America as well, it was Kelazhur. Kelazhur was actually like an unbelievable legend when it came to just that Reaper control. I think we still see little glimmers of that when he actually just has even the individual Reaper harass and stuff, or the pokes and prods he has early on to, you know, move around, find some information, everything. But he still busts out those 3x Reapers. We still get to see some of those because he's so good at it.
It's just so terrifying as a Zerg player because sometimes it can be hard to spot, and if you don't scout the extra barracks, you just open one eye as you're macroing and putting your 3rd base down, and then 20 Reapers are at your frontal. It's not going to happen this game, though, as already Kelazhur is dropping the factory behind this and the low ground command center, playing things exceptionally safe here on Eternal Empire LE. No surprises. Now, Erik's 3rd base, a little bit slowed down here. I expect we'll see a drone transferring over soon to grab that 3rd base, as he is ticking over to about the 3-minute mark, indicating that the 3rd base for the Zerg player is a little bit late.
Yeah, it's not too bad just yet, but definitely something he's going to want to try and take soon, as he's started to bank some of the resources for that as well. But Starport's going to be on the way. I want to note again that last game we saw Kelazhur open up with, yes, the Reactor Hellion opening and everything all looking normal there. But it was about the fact that the Starport, after it finished up, we saw the fusion core coming down, and that's where really things started picking up for Kelazhur. So I want to know, like, I feel like Kelazhur, he usually is in one of 2 modes when he enters a tournament. I feel like one mode is that he arrives and he has one style for the matchup, and he just does that style. And the other is he mixes it up basically every single game. It's usually one of those 2 extremes that I feel like we should see from him.
It might be a while before we have an answer for you, though, Fear Dragon, because, of course, he won't drop down anything until that Overlord in his main base is taken care of. So as that pops down, we'll see. There we go. The Overlord goes down, and immediately Cloak and a Banshee start right away for Kelazhur.
Yeah, and remember that this was, like, it's a little bit obvious that the Tech Lab's going onto the Starport. So Erik should know there's a chance for this. But after that last game, where he once again got baited into thinking it was going to be Cloak Banshee initially, then the Battlecruiser showed up, that's where things get a little bit weird. So Erik has to make a judgment call. Okay, do I think it's going to be Cloak Banshee, or is it going to be one of those, you know, Battlecruiser openings again? Like, what is it probably going to be? Because it's got to be one of the 2. Almost always, it's going to be one of the 2.
Sure, and the really good news right now for Erik is that he's already got that Lair Tech finishing up very quickly. So he will be able to get some Overseers on the map to drive away the Cloaked Banshees if they do in fact come across the map. There's number 2 on the way now from Kelazhur. So Erik's in a good position to deal with this, and of course the Baneling Nest will help to scare away these Hellions and make sure they don't incur too much into Erik's main territory. As the 3rd base for Erik finishes up, he goes for a Spire as well. Looks like Lingbane Muta again out of our Zerg player.
Hey, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mutas worked really, really well in that last game. And of course, Kelazhur's going to be going into bio this game, so it is going to be a bit different. He's not up against that mech style where the only units you get that attack up are missile turrets and Thors. So I think that Kelazhur should have a much better handle on that Muta harass this game. But we'll have to wait and see. Like, there's still definitely an opportunity for Erik to kind of showcase some really solid Muta control, especially on a map like Eternal Empire, where I feel like there's dead airspace, there's opportunities to move behind the third base into the main base or from the bottom of the natural. Like, there's really nice angles you can use mutas on in this map.
And a lot of open space in the map as well, so it's very easy to catch some pockets of Marines, some little battalions coming across and surrounded with the Lings, maybe force out a really bad Baneling shot. The question for me is going to be, how is Kelazhur going to deal with the pressure if he has the Marines across the map right now? I'm just a little concerned about the move out timings right now from Kelazhur, because he's just getting started with his 1-1, but these Banshees not getting enough done, I don't think, to really scare Erik into making an aggressive move forward. There it is. 6 Mutalisks coming out now, and ooh, that's not very many.
Yeah, it's not going to be a ton, because remember, he did end up getting up a couple of safety Banelings and everything, so that plus getting up Baneling speed nice and early on. Erik's respecting the potential for like one of those nice timed Marine move outs with stim and everything. So it is going to eat into the gas cost a little bit, but he definitely ends up getting the gas later on for it. So he'll be able to get up plenty of mutas to continue harassing. And I think it's just a nice little touch that Kelazhur was able to keep those 2 Banshees alive. He keeps them up in the top left-hand side. It may seem like Banshees are absolutely worthless once the mutas are out. You can be surprised how much damage they can get done once the mutas are out and they're actually harassing you. And then you send the Banshees back in and you're like, oh, well, now the mutas actually have to return home. This is awkward.
Yeah, a lot of the army time in the middle of the map, anytime that army is not being used to do damage, it's just a wasted supply. So those Banshees can really cause a lot of damage. We've seen that time and time again. But here's what we were just saying a moment ago. Kelazhur's just going to move out, but the Mutalisks are just going to go to town right now, slowing down a supply depot, working on the wall. Oh, pardon me, Fear Dragon. Kelazhur does have an awful lot at the third base, though, for Erik.
Yeah, big stim up over here. He's going to try and clean up some of the creep as he saw those Banelings make their way forward. Banelings rolling on in, but the bunker manages to survive, and so does the missile turret. Erik really wanted to get a little bit more damage done there, and he is supply blocking Kelazhur pretty badly. Another supply depot is getting closer and closer to finishing there, but reinforcements are not going to be coming for a bit. Kelazhur is actually just going to back off. He doesn't want to overstay his welcome, but the Lings and Banelings are going to get chased. Those siege tanks looking very vulnerable, but there's the pickup on the medevac. Going to be able to keep those alive, and the Hellions, those are expendable. He needs to keep the Marines and the siege tanks alive, though.
Very wise move from Kelazhur there. He had those siege tanks in the back of that pressure on the third base, undefended completely. And when you're up against Ling Bane Muta, you cannot leave your siege tanks in a safe position behind your Marines, because this is exactly what happens. The tanks are going to go down to the Mutalisks very quickly, leaving you the force to be split against the Lings and Banes. Not great connections, though, from Erik there. Kelazhur with some beautiful splitting on those Marines.
I mean, I have to say, Kelazhur did a really nice job with the micro there. Like you were saying, the splits and also the focus fire from the siege tanks was really solid. He knocked out like 5 of the Banelings, just the siege tank shots, before they were even able to get close to the Marines. But I'm really surprised Erik took a fight that aggressively off of creep and everything against a well set up, already sieged up Terran player. I think that's actually just going to cost some game. That move right there is what seals the deal here for Kelazhur.
Yeah, that was a very greedy play from Erik. Like as you said, I'm not sure what he was expecting to accomplish with that fight, because he certainly wasn't in like a really powerful position. So far off creep, unable to reinforce. The Mutalisks involved in the fight as well, so they aren't able to come back. And now Kelazhur up in the main base now of Erik, pre-splitting those Marines one by one. Terrible Baneling connections, and while Erik may clean this up, I think Kelazhur is in a strong position at 68 workers to 44.
Yeah, like you said, he'll clean this up, but it's not even a nice cleanup. The mutas, a couple of them end up falling over here. Starting off the medevacs, both of them is definitely really nice, but remember, there's another little bit of an army over here on the right-hand side. 2 medevacs going to be fully loaded up, and there's still some units left back at home here for Kelazhur. He's got plenty of missile turrets to deal with just the Lings, or sorry, just the mutas. And there's no Banelings out right now. It's just mutas. That's all that's going to be heading Kelazhur's way. So he has what he needs to defend while he harasses.
And look at what he's adding on behind this. Drilling claws for his Widow Mines, as well as that +2/+2 coming down for his infantry. So this is exactly the sort of composition you want to see against Lingbane Muta. Those Widow Mines are so pernicious. They are so frustrating to deal with as a Zerg player. You have to be constantly spotting not just the mini-map, but watching the actual map itself when you have units moving around, because a simple Widow Mine shot can destroy a Mutalisk flock. Nice move in here, but trading a partially finished base for a fully finished base is still about an even trade for the Zerg player who's stuck on 3 bases right now.
There's 5 Banelings out. If Kelazhur does some really nice micro, he could potentially snipe off some of those, but decides to play it safe, backs off, loses 1 Marine, and is happy with the damage he got done. Mutas are looking for the medevacs. Remember, those medevacs are going to be unloading over here, though. Kelazhur's playing it safe, and yeah, he expected, like, wait a second, the Mutas suddenly stopped harassing me. They got to be coming for me. He's going to be able to find them. Focus fires down individual Mutas as well. Not just 3, 4, almost 5 of them. Then definitely not too bad of a trade there for Kelazhur as he continues to clean up creep on the other side.
Yeah, great map awareness, great read of his opponent there as he realizes that, well, as you said, wait a minute, where are those Mutalisks? If they're not attacking me, then wait a minute. He tries to push it into the natural, but of course there's enough creep that Erik's able to respond just in time. We'll see if these Mutas can get anything done at the 3rd base or maybe the natural of Kelazhur, but Kelazhur might actually be able to pincer these little guys. They're stuck between a rock and a Kelazhur place right now.
Really awkward Widow Mines, but oh my god, the Drilling Claw is going to be able to catch some of the Mutas, and like you said, there's the flank coming in, picks off a bunch of these Mutalisks, and that was like the saving grace over here for Erik, right? That he had all of these Mutas, that there's such a high Muta count he can continue to harass. He does still have a decent number, and they're going to start regenerating hit points, but guess what? His Lings, his Mutas, they're out of position. 4th base going to get denied again. That is almost like a killing blow right there. Once again, with a Thor even out over here for Kelazhur, he just moves across the map, and I'm not sure how Erik stops that.
I'm getting flashbacks to that Stefano game earlier where he just lost his 4th base over and over and over again. Kelazhur doing such a nice job with the denial, and as you said, feeling safe enough now that his reinforcements from his bio units, or from his production units in the main base, can drive back any of these other units. The bunker saving the 3rd base. The SCV should mostly get away. A couple of Mutalisks going to take him down, but the real pressure on the other side of the map right now as Kelazhur moves into the Thor and a metric crap ton of bio.
Yeah, Banelings come rolling on in, and that's a decent number of them, but that was almost all of them. 9 more just finished on up. I'm not sure if 9 is actually going to be enough to break through this. At the same time, Bio nearly killing off that very low hit point 3rd base. Thor going to be adding in a good bit of extra DPS, making sure that these Mutas cannot just stack up and try and take out these Marines one by one. As the Baneling Nest gets taken out, Erik is going to tap out, and we get a tied up series 1-1.
Yeah, this is exactly what we want to see. As you said, guaranteed a game 3, right? Of course, this is a best of 5. What is our next map going to be, Ravi? Do you happen to remember?
You know what? I do know, but I'm not going to tell you yet, Creighton, because we're going to keep a little bit of suspense before moving to game number 3. We're going to go to a short break, give these players a chance to breathe, and we'll see you guys in just a little bit. Our first series of the day that doesn't end with a one-sided finish. Even if the games have been close for some of the previous series, we finally have a series that goes 1-1. And of course, this is the best of 5, so we still got plenty of games left over. Neither one of these players are at match point just yet, Creighton.
That's correct. And to add an extra little cherry on top of the ice cream sundae that is this Erik versus Kelazhur series, our next map, Ravi, is Golden Wall for the first time today.
Absolutely love it. This is definitely a very fun map. I will say for ZVT, I feel like it does get a little bit hectic with just the drop potential on this map can get a little bit nuts, especially with just the entire bottom side of the map oftentimes just being completely segmented off. Terran players just have a field day dropping into the main base, but then Zerg players start predicting that they're going to drop from there. So Terran players start dropping in from the north side, and Zerg players are out of position. This map just has so many cool, dynamic meta adjustments that keep happening. I really, really enjoy it.
I could not agree more. So we'll have to figure out which player can take advantage of this unique map. Will it be on the far right-hand side in the red, representing Brazil and Archangel Gaming, Kelazhur?
And down in the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have the red Zerg player, also representing Brazil, but currently teamless. He is Erik. Ooh, I don't think I've heard that one before.
It's hard to keep them straight for me. I'm never sure which one is which.
I feel like I had heard all of them, but I think they added a bunch of new little guitar riffs this season, so I'm enjoying the new ones. I'm enjoying them.
I'm enjoying all of it. We don't have fancy guitar riffs on the B stream, so I'm just used to like introing the players and then there's silence and a couple crickets chirping in the background because the shared office.
You just need to learn some power chords, right? And then you can play them yourself live on air.
My God, that'd be amazing. I'll get a flying V. I'll rent a wig. I'll go full Steven Tyler. That'll be amazing.
I've actually thought about that. I was like, I just got my own, because I also started getting into like electric guitar this year. I'm horrible at it. I was like, finally figured out how to set it up, hook it into my microphone and everything. I could actually stream some of my own little guitar riffs and everything. I'd be like, oh.
Hey.
Yeah. That's my impression of my guitar playing, because it sounds very much like high-pitched screeching.
That sounds about right. Well, when you do, I'll tell you what. Let me know when you're hooked up, and I'll start a Matcherino pool, and we'll buy you a whammy bar so you can do all those cool electric guitar.
Oh no! See, I have a whole thing. Everyone's been handling quarantine a little bit differently and everything, and I know it's been stressful for a lot of people. One of the things that's been keeping me sane is just picking up new skills. So guitar was one of my my big New Year's resolutions. So I actually have this whole thing where I'm like, I have a specific song I'm trying to learn how to play, and once I can play it, I'm gonna blow a bunch of money on a really, really nice guitar. It's like my reward. I don't want to be spoiled.
That sounds awesome. What a good way to reward yourself for accomplishing your goal. I love it.
Yeah, man.
Kelazhur hops into the natural here, and good save there by Erik on the drone into the Spore Crawler. And with the Queen here, this Reaper shouldn't get too much more done. And it looks like more standard play from Kelazhur here. Still no triple barracks action, going straight to the factory instead.
Yeah, I really don't hate the idea of like avoiding 3x Reaper on this map. This is not the map for 3x Reaper. There's no Reaper hop-up cliff from the low ground up to the natural, really? Or like I should say, there's no Reaper hop-up cliff to the main base besides the natural. And you have to enter the natural, like it negates half of the advantage of going for 3x Reaper. So I really like the Kelazhur's not doing that on this map.
I'll hold out hope. Maybe one more game. Come on, man.
Well, we're guaranteed one more game, so.
Oh, that's true. Maybe next game then. Excellent. Excellent. We do see him finishing up the starport back home. A couple Hellions popping out of the reactored factory now, as finally Erik making that long, slow slog over to the third base with the Queens and Lings to clear the way for a third base at about the 3.5-minute mark. So not the latest third base in the world, but not super economic either. And ooh, that drone almost getting roasted by the Hellion, but finally does get down. Some really fancy micro there from Kelazhur.
Yeah, he got really close to that, but he also managed to keep the Reaper alive. It was down to its final little last line of health, so being able to keep that alive is still a nice little win because it can pair up with the Hellions, push back some of the creep spread, etc. We got a medevac being made. Okay, so Kelazhur went for the first medevac. He's going to load up a few units. He loads up like 3 Marines. And I think he's actually going to pair this up with the Hellions. I wonder if is he going to actually go bother to... No, he's just sniping off the Overlord. I was going to say, this is a really nice map for PvP to pick up the Hellions and drop into like the main base. I haven't really seen it as much in, TVZ. So maybe he's going to do something similar.
Yeah, and I think that move usually works best if it's not spotted, right? If your opponent maybe doesn't know you're making medevacs yet. So usually you want to catch people a little bit by surprise. Already, though, look at the Erik's creep spread. This is actually pretty impressive for 4.5 minutes in. The third base already connected, but 3 active tumors down. If he wants to grab a gold base, he certainly could. And here's that drop that you were talking about. Just a couple Marines right now being a little bit annoying. And I was just about to call it out. Look at the back bases of these two players, where already Erik is mining out a couple of the minerals here from his rear mineral patches. But it looks like Kelazhur has not touched his yet. So Erik's going to have access to the bottom half of Golden Wall before Kelazhur does. Ooh, Kelazhur pressuring the third as well.
Yeah, going to be actually denying some of the larva at the third, which is really nice. But you were talking about mining out those mineral patches. With Creighton, it's hard to mine out those mineral patches when a bunch of Marines are sitting on the other side, killing off any drones trying to mine from there. So Erik is actually halted on that for a bit. It's not really resuming because I think he's busy dealing with these Hellions that are continuing to poke on forward. I actually really like how this harassment for Kelazhur has been shaping up, even if he hasn't found too much damage just yet.
Yeah, really, really nice plays from Kelazhur. Not just a dual-pronged harassment. If you guys are looking for little micro tips in your own games, there's a great one that all the pros have really latched on to. Oh my god, these queens off creep. One going down, second one under duress now. Transfuse going down just enough to save it, but only for a little bit. Oh my god. In the backside, there it is. The second queen goes down. That should drive Kelazhur back away.
Yeah, but I mean, he's already done some really, really nice damage. The medevac managed to survive. The Liberator also managed to get out of there in time before the Spore Call was able to like take it out or do any real damage to it. So now that Liberator is going to be able to siege up in another position, deny a bit of the gas mining over here. Erik realizing a little bit late, so he's going to end up losing almost 3 drones, but he's going to end up losing some larvae here, which are trying to turn into mutas. Okay, he's going to get out of there alive with the Liberator.
Very timely save from Erik. That's nice. The one thing I was just going to say really quickly, as Kelazhur was finishing up with that Liberator harass, one thing that we've all been learning from pros the last couple months especially is that Liberators are so much more effective if you siege them up over the path between the gas and the command center, and the hatchery rather. That just allows, it makes it a little bit more difficult for players to box all their units and get them out of there. So we saw really nice positions from Kelazhur on that Liberator, allowing him to get maybe 2 or 3 extra drone kills he simply would not have gotten had he sieged up directly over the mineral line proper. So all these little tiny things that are really starting to add up for Kelazhur. Still anybody's game, of course.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing to note, and definitely something we've been seeing players get better at, those small little micro tricks here and there. A couple of workers getting sniped off and delaying minor bits of mining or production here for Kelazhur. So these mutas trying to find some value, and this is definitely going to be a not so fun way to defend, where Kelazhur basically has to split up his Marines between the main base, the natural, and that third base in a very awkward way. But that's going to also potentially leave him open to the bailing run by over here. Kelazhur not really noticing. He finally sees it. Bailings. Oh my god, they're actually not going to get the massive SCV connection. Well done.
Yeah, really nice pull by Kelazhur. A little bit late, but interestingly, Erik actually using a lot of those banelings on the missile turret. I think he's hoping that he can get some Mutalisks harass done at the gold base, maybe a little bit later. As for now, he's contenting himself to pick off reinforcements, and Kelazhur must be feeling the pressure because look at this. He's already moving across the map here, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, this is going to be a weird move out because yes, there's a missile turret back at home. Yes, there are a few Marines popping on out to help deal with those mutas, but realistically, those mutas are kind of getting to go ham on do whatever they want. This is a gold base, so it only has 1 gas geyser. It doesn't really give Kelazhur the normal amount of gas he would have. He's even getting supply block right now, so yes, he's cleaning up creep. Yes, he's getting closer and closer to these bases, but the mutas have plenty of time to actually return home.
You caught me in the middle of a yawn, Fear Dragon. Sorry. It was a beautiful caster handoff, and I was sitting in my chair going, no, keep talking, oh no. So yes, Kelazhur caught at a very odd time. The Mutalisks finally brought back home for Erik. 2-2 now on the way for Kelazhur, and +1 melee and +2 flyer attack on the way for Erik. So these players keeping fairly even on their upgrades. It's hard to judge directly, but already Kelazhur powering up with the first Thor coming out here. Does he have enough factories to create enough Thors at a time? How many Thors does he really need on the map right now, Fear Dragon?
I mean, he's going for bio. He doesn't need as many as he needed in game number 1 to deal with the mutas. Like 1 or 2 Thors is actually enough to just disincentivize the mutas from immediately diving in on like these missile turrets, because you notice how much they have to bunch up to actually go kill and right-click down a missile turret. It's quite a few. So I feel like 1, maybe 2 Thors is going to be plenty, and then it's just get up some Widow Mines. That's all he's going to need from there.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's really smart. Drilling Claws now finishing up here for, or pardon me, about halfway done rather for Kelazhur. And these Mutalisks finding less and less play as the game goes on. It looks like they're going to get driven away yet again, and they keep running into Kelazhur's army. And now that Kelazhur has a 4th base up, he's actually in a really decent economic spot. I was a little worried for him 5 minutes ago, but now I think he's just fine, Fear Dragon.
No, I think you're right. There's one thing that these mutas have been able to do a really nice job of, though, and that's keeping Kelazhur at home. Yes, Kelazhur was able to do that push out at the top left-hand side a little while ago, but it honestly didn't get that much damage done, and now the Bailey's actually coming rolling on and managing to find not too many of the Marines, but they do manage to snipe off a handful of the siege tanks there. There's only 1 left over, so it's just these Marines. Erik's gonna need to replenish some of the Bailings, but he's already actually up to 14. This is not too bad of a spot for Erik.
Yeah, I think that trade was still slightly in Kelazhur's favor, though. These siege tanks getting beautiful shots on the Banelings, just like we saw in game number 1, where huge clumps of Banes going down to the siege tanks, allowing this army supply from Kelazhur to remain pretty high. If we look at the army graph, actually, we can see that Erik dropped a lot of units there in that initial engagement, whereas Kelazhur was able to rebuild right away, keeping him way on top army supply-wise. Erik building 9 more mutas here, but Kelazhur already on these 2-2 Marines, working on 3-3. I don't know that more Mutalisks is the right choice here.
Yeah, he's even investing into the +2 flyer attack upgrade instead of 2-2, like you were kind of alluding to. More Bailing's going to be morphing on in. I feel like Erik's sort of relying on just really, really good Bailing connections and just the raw muta count, being able to push back this army. But is he splitting up the mutas down to the bottom right? Is he actually going to go for a counterattack, or is he trying to swing around to snipe off reinforcements? Okay, yeah, he's going to counterattack the 3rd.
Interesting choice from Erik here. There's, of course, the only 1 missile turret, and that disappears right away. But I think Kelazhur is in a position where he's probably okay to just attack. He might even, I mean, I don't usually encourage going for a base trade, but if you're a Terran player on bio with decent production, it may be the best option you've got.
Oh, Widow Mines. Okay, I swear there was an Overseer with this Mutaflock before, but it's gone now. Creighton, I'm really worried about those Widow Mines. I'm really, really worried that these mutas are just diving so hard around for bases that they're eventually going to encounter those, and that's going to be 1 giant, massive Mutaflock pop.
Yeah, it is. The splash damage for Kelazhur getting so much better. Even though he lost all those tanks earlier, he still has plenty of Widow Mines left. So look, Kelazhur's lost 34 workers now. He's down to just 34 workers, which means he's got to move sooner rather than later. I think Kelazhur just needs to put the pedal to the metal and go, and try and force Erik into a trade right now with what Erik's got, which is what? +1/+1 Lings and Banes? The mutas on the wrong side of the map? I think Kelazhur goes now. He's got a good chance.
I mostly agree with you. I don't know that he actually has a chance anymore. Maybe with the reinforcements. Okay, if he has all the reinforcements, if he's able to bring back all the defensive units, oh my god, that Thor is killing so many mutas. I was gonna say, like, if these reinforcements get there, I actually do agree with you. I think that there weren't enough Banelings before, but now there's 28 of them. I don't know, Creighton. I think this is still gonna be really tough.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. The Baneling count has been growing considerably now. Kelazhur, I think, sitting on his haunches, waiting for 3-3 to finish up. There's infantry weapons level 3. He's waiting on infantry armor now, but his 4th base, or what was his 4th base, now just his 3rd base, getting absolutely ravaged by those mutas, finally pushed away. But the longer it takes, the longer Erik is going to have to get in a positive position this game. And we can already see the income way in his favor. Those little red arrows in between the mineral and gas incomes, just showing that Erik is mining so much more than Kelazhur.
Okay, Bailey's come rolling on forward, and they're going to be able to take care of some of the Marines. Don't quite kill off the Widow Mines there, so Kelazhur still has a stable position at this location between these bases, cutting them off. More Bailey's come rolling on forward, not really getting the best of trades, but still 15 Bailings left over, and the mutas are back. This is going to be the trigger moment for Erik. Oh, he's going to end up backing off. That army for Kelazhur is looking really, really scary here, but he is committed to making damage happen.
This is such a weird one to call here. It's, a Widow Mine shot on the Overseers, not grabbing a lot of the Widow Mines, or a lot of them Mutalisks, but here we go.
Okay.
Oh, man. Those Banelings crashing through. Erik now able to remax. 22 more Lings coming down, +2 melee attacks on the way, but the Mutalisk count still super high. I don't know if Kelazhur has enough gas in the tank to finish this off. It's going to be so close, Fear Dragon.
There's only 5 mutas left now after that fight, because the mutas had to fight the Marine. More Balus again and morphed on. And, you know, I actually feel like if the drones had retreated north, maybe this could have been salvageable. Remember, a lot of Kelazhur's army supply is actually just these medevacs, but it doesn't matter. Erik gonna tap out, and Kelazhur takes game number 3 by the skin of his teeth.
By the skin of his teeth, indeed. What a game that was. I had no idea who was going to win until that final engagement, and that is what makes StarCraft an absolutely incredible esport, Fear Dragon. What could Erik have done that he didn't do to win that game?
Man, it's really tough because I feel like he was doing a great job buying time with the mutas. I really do think that there were a few times he tried to like half break out with the Banelings. It's important that when the Terran players continue to pressure with those little groups of Marines, that you do push them back a little, right? You don't want to just be taking a bunch of damage, but I actually do feel like maybe he was just overcommitting a bit too far with too many of those Banelings. If you get up enough of just a critical mass of defensive units there, I actually think he can storm through, power through that army, especially before the reinforcements came. But I don't know, maybe if he was going to do the big breakout move in, I think he had to do it a bit earlier while the mutas were still like chasing away a lot of the bio and then returning back. But man, it was a really, really close game. I think both of those players are playing that really well.
That's a great one. And of course, they're playing super well because remember, the loser of this series is done. They're out of the tournament. This is the end for them. They walk away with a handful of money and a couple of EPT points, but no opportunity to move on to face Special or Erik in the, Special or Cham in what will be the losers bracket round 2 match happening tomorrow. So a lot at stake here for Kelazhur and Erik as we move into Pillars of Gold LE, our 4th map of the series.
Yeah, Pillars of Gold. All right. I think maybe, just maybe this will be the map that we end up seeing some 3-rack Reaper shenanigans. I'm not entirely sold on it, but I could see it from Kelazhur. But you know, if he just decided to go back to like say a battlecruiser opening again, or just mix in one of those openings we've already seen, I actually wouldn't hate that too much from Kelazhur. I feel like he's actually still playing really well with the bio style. I'd love to see him just play more bio and just make that work again.
It's always hard for me to remind myself that Pillars of Gold is actually one of the new maps in the map pool. It feels so familiar. It feels so it seems. I know it uses the same tile set as Eternal Empire, and then it feels like a map that I just know so well. Maybe because I've seen so many games on it. But it's always hard to remember that it's one of the newer maps in the map pool. But the players still have tons of rep on Pillars of Gold. It's a great map, and I agree with you. Kelazhur could definitely pull out something a little more aggressive this match, and it would totally make sense on Pillars of Gold.
Yeah, I do think it's one of the more like standard, normal maps that are very similar to a lot of the maps we've seen so far, where it's got that similar setup with like a high ground natural, low ground third base. It's a little bit more open. There's another option for the high ground one. Yeah, it's pretty normal. We're gonna be starting over here in the top right hand side though, on top of the red Zerg player. He is Erik.
And his fellow countryman, Brazilian, in the bottom left-hand side in the blue. From Archangel Gaming, it's our Terran player, Kelazhur. You know, Fear Dragon, I did an interview with Kelazhur a couple months ago.
Oh, yeah.
I got to talk to him. It was super cool. I got to talk to him a while. My favorite question was, obviously, you guys know Kelazhur's Brazilian, and he's currently living in the Netherlands. And so my favorite question that I asked him was, Kelazhur, both Brazil and the Netherlands are generally known for having like tall, attractive people living there. Are you planning on just going over to create a world super race of hyper attractive babies that will also be amazing at StarCraft? And he declined to comment, actually, which I think says a lot about what he's doing over there.
Oh, fair enough. No, Diego's one of my favorite people in StarCraft. He's just such a nice fellow, and he's very much so the world traveler. I mean, for those who don't know, he was born in Florida, which is actually the reason why he participated in so many NA events for a long time. So he actually is a natural-born American citizen. But he grew up in Brazil until around the age of like 15, maybe like 16 or so, before he actually moved over to the United States. He moved back to Florida. Then he lived in the root house. So he went from like Latin America, so United States to Latin America, back to the United States. Lived in Korea for a while to play in GSL and train in the team house and everything over there. Then moved back to the United States for a little bit. Then moved to Europe for school. So he's just been everywhere. This guy was actually not just traveled for events. He's literally traveled and lived in so many different countries. Really cool story for him. Do quickly want to note that there was an early pool opening over here, and those lings are making their way across the map. And Kelazhur has that single Marine now, but this is not like the first game where the lings are just looking to come in at 2 at a time, or just like 2 of them, and the Marine can out micro them. 6 lings, you're actually looking to get like a slowdown, a potential cancel on that hatchery or that command center.
And not just 6 lings, but look at what other tech Erik has coming down. A very early Roach Warren down in his base there. So we expect to see a lot of really early pressure. And there it is, those trademark 4 roaches. There it is, 4 roaches coming out for Erik, and they'll be pushing across the map very soon. Let's see if these lings get any damage done. Oh, beautiful micro from Kelazhur yet again. Not losing anything more than 1 Marine. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Almost was flawless there, but the grenade actually knocked 2 of the lings into the Marine for a surround. So that was a little unfortunate, but overall, yeah, really solid defense there so far. Now, an important part of this is that the Reaper is back at home this entire time. So the Reaper moves out now, but it hasn't seen anything yet. It just knows, okay, yeah, you went for a pool first. He's going to move in here. He sees a roach pop. He sees no drones. Now, immediately, alarm bells should be sounding. But Kelazhur finished up that natural. He can lift that off. He's already got bunkers up on the high ground. I mean, Kelazhur's already got a great response so far.
Beautiful star sense from Kelazhur, even before he saw that first roach that I believe he saw, unless I missed him scouting one earlier, had that bunker going down on the high ground and working on the second one now. He knows that roach is a very traditional follow-up to a pool. And at this point, I think it's safe to say that Erik is all in. He's got 8 more lings on the way, no more drones, no third base, just morphing in Ravagers one by one. And he's going to try and break this wall down and get a lot of damage done. But the second bunker's finished up for Kelazhur right now, and this is looking more and more like a good hold.
Yeah, the corrosive bile might be able to finish off the bunker, or sorry, the reactor does manage to break on through. Remember, the reactor got knocked out earlier as well, so there's not as many Marines as Kelazhur would normally want, but his second bunker is holding strong for a little bit. There's just SCVs in there. It was a bait and switch. There were no Marines to help out. And remember, the floodgates are open. Kelazhur does not actually have a wall anymore, so all of these lings that are reinforcing go straight into the main.
Really interesting choices here from Erik, droning behind this, feeling like maybe he's gotten enough economic damage done already no matter what happens the rest of the game. He can come out of this. Erik is now behind on Kelazhur is now behind on workers, and as he cleans up the last of these lings, the less of the lings are going to get driven away. There is a Banshee out, but now that he's shown the Banshee, Erik should have plenty of time to get some spores down to protect himself.
Yeah, one nice thing is that Kelazhur, during that attack, was mining from his natural. That actually is pretty nice. He didn't have to lift it up. He was able to actually start that SAV production during everything. So all things said and done, I feel like Kelazhur, he's not going to be thrilled about how that went. I think he's actually still in an okay spot. He's in a recoverable spot from here. And he's immediately going to slap down a 3rd command center as well, which should get scouted, but I think it should still survive.
Yeah, definitely should. I like this play from Kelazhur. You know, he's probably aware that Erik's only on 2 bases, and Erik has a couple options behind this. Go into 2-base Spire, start your lair up, maybe go for roach speed if you're desperate, or try and macro behind it, go for a 3rd base, etc., etc. And either way, Kelazhur dropping his 3rd base down as if to say, you know what, I ain't afraid. Whatever you're bringing to me, I'm ready to macro my way out of this. And whoa, a very late. Okay, never mind. Kelazhur started a Banshee and Cloak and then canceled it right away. Instead, starting on Stim and Marines, we're going to see Kelazhur going into Bio here again in game number 3.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling we're going to be seeing a 2-base Spire or something coming out over here from Erik. Maybe something along those lines. The fact that he's going for such a fast lair off of those 2 bases. I mean, the lair, I think, started up maybe even just a few seconds before the 3rd hatchery. And the Baneling Esl is going to be added on. It'll be a nice way to shut down any of the Banshee harassment that continues to, come forward. But Spore Crawler plus the Queen got to do some damage over here. It's not enough damage. Force back these Banshees immediately. So already getting some really nice pickoffs here. But that first Banshee, oh my God, it gets out of there alive.
I love a Banshee that has almost as many kills as it has hit points remaining, Fear Dragon. That's a battle-hardened veteran for me. I love it.
And I like the way you think.
As you beautifully predicted, look at that. Spire coming down in the main base, unscouted by Kelazhur, but he has got to suspect Spire play. I mean, what else can you do from this position?
Well, I mean, Erik has definitely been making use of that Spire throughout this series. I think, unless Kelazhur thinks that this game has just gone so off the rails with the early all-in and everything, Kelazhur should be expecting that, yes, Erik has really enjoyed opening up with these Spire plays, and honestly, they've been working. Even in the games that Kelazhur wins, it feels like the Spire's play is probably the best part of Erik's gameplay, so he should be expecting it. And we'll see how he's going to be able to react. He's got his third CC finish. There's the scans that 100% confirms there is a Spire coming on out.
That's a really fair assessment, I think. Now, I'm a little bit concerned because Kelazhur appears to be going for a 1-1 push, maybe getting a third base. Oh, he's getting an armory. Never mind. So maybe he's going for a 2-2 push. He's got a little while. And that's going to allow him to sit back home, defend, wait for the mutas to come to him, and play it almost a little bit like a Zerg player, where you're like, no, you set the pace, and then I'll defend, and then I'll move across, and I can defend better than you can attack. And then once I do that, it's an easy win for me. So we'll see if the Banshee's getting any additional damage done. But yeah, I expect Kelazhur maybe to wait for a 2-2 before pushing out. We may be in for a bit of a longer game here, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, bad. That's always so sad when the Queen survives with like 1 hit point left over and starts regenerating. And you're like, oh man, that natural health regen tick for Zergs, gets you again. Otherwise, the Banshee could have gotten a nice little clean pickup there for this push, which, you know, you did call it the first time. It is going to be this 1-1 push out over here, which is going to hit. And the funny thing is, this will actually deny the mutas from getting aggressive for a bit. Now, obviously, this is all dependent on Kelazhur not losing everything here really one-sidedly. He has to keep these units alive, but man, that siege positioning is always so brutal for a Zerg player to deal with.
Oof. Yeah, especially since there are only 5 Mutalisks out, and again, Kelazhur babysitting those tanks. The Mutalisks from Erik are going to try and get on top of the tanks, but Kelazhur's like, no, I got Marines there. You're not getting the tanks for free. And while it does reduce his firepower in the front of his army, it makes him a lot more safe, and it makes this push more sustainable. Interestingly, Kelazhur is not reinforcing this push at all. He's instead building up his reinforcements back home at his third base. Now working on +2/+2. Combat Shield's about to finish up, and Kelazhur going to take a more aggressive posture now as the game ticks into minute 9.
Yeah, look at Erik's worker count. It's so pathetic at this point. 46 workers for a 3-base Zerg against a 3-base Terran player who's mining safely on the inside of the map, and 1-1's finished up. I mean, yeah, actually at this point, if Kelazhur gets cleaned up, I actually think that Kelazhur is still really far ahead at this point.
Yeah, I've got to agree, and he's doing everything you would expect a Terran player to do if they had assessed the game and were like, you know what, I think I'm ahead at this point. Oh, jeez. A couple really ugly Baneling shots there. One Banshee going to go down there. The Medevac's barely staying alive. But nice pickups there from Erik. But yeah, as you said, even when Kelazhur gets cleaned up over here, because his Marine count is down to just nothing, he's doing everything behind this that's right. Widow Mines, Drilling Claws, +1 vehicle armor, +2/+2 for your Marines. And he's got to hope this run-by doesn't catch him too much by surprise.
Oh, it's going to be the opposite, actually. The run-by is going to be caught by the Marines on the retreat. So it's the unfortunate thing. You were talking about this earlier. When you try and go for one, oh my God, the Widow Mine. Oh, Erik never saw it. I thought he caught a glimpse of it with the mutas, but he didn't. So this is a lot of Banes there in an already desperate and dire situation.
Yeah, man, that's one chunk of units you really can't afford to lose. You know, Zerglings are built to die, but Banelings, you know, they gotta explode, man. So, by the way, that base is a face. I don't know if you ever noticed that Fear Dragon, the base in the top left corner. It's like a Ninja Turtle face if you look at it closely. That one right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Do you see it? You see it?
I do.
It's good. Anyway,
you know
pick
what,
up
actually,
your Kelazhur, and it's tough with the Mutalisk because you can't just like pick up and escape. You gotta drop down again. So it forces Kelazhur to engage here.
Yeah, Kelazhur's going to be happy with that trade. He was going to trade 1 medevac and a handful of Marines for a kill on the 4th base here for the Zerg player. Erik is actually going to be behind on the 4th base timing because the 4th command center is already finishing up there for Kelazhur. That is not where Erik wants to be. I think there's even some harass happening inside the main base right now. Yeah, the Banshee is going ham and just killed the Queen. And now it's just going after the drones and gas. He's going to be limiting the gas income, drawing all the mutas back. So Kelazhur, even though he retreats home, the mutas are still not even harassing him. The mutas have not harassed him this entire game.
What a cheeky boy. I love that from Kelazhur. 1 uncloaked Banshee, and he's like, you know what? For king and country, I'm going in, baby. 4th base down for Erik now. But it's going to be forever before it's ready to go. Now, I do love that Erik is spreading some creep at the 5th base location at the 6 o'clock there for Kelazhur. But Kelazhur, of course, happy to take the outside 9 o'clock base and just expand clockwise around this map. Man, Kelazhur's in just a great spot here.
Yeah, I actually, even though he could take that 5th base on the bottom center eventually, I don't even think he needs to think about that right now. He's in such a nice spot that I actually feel like as he gets closer and closer to maxing out with a 60 supply lead, I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to max out and go for this push out. He's already making the push out because he says, well, I see a lot of Lings and Mutas over here, so you're not up in the top left-hand side. Pushes over there, confirms there's no base, and then says, all right, I know what my next target is. You don't even have creep spray here over.
It feels very weird for a Ling Bane Muta style army to be outmaneuvered by anything. And I know Bio is a pretty mobile sort of army, but I always think of Ling Bane Muta as being able to be everywhere on the map all at once, and nobody can like double prong harass you. But Kelazhur's doing such a nice job. Now, this little push from Erik could be a little scary. There's not that much home right now, and the splash damage, practically non-existent.
Yeah, oh boy, the Widow Mines are gonna burrow, and they do not manage to get a shot off, but the Banelings are mostly all used on the Marines. They might even kill off, let's even say every single SCV there. Kelazhur's still super far ahead, because guess what? All of those Banelings have to be remade. There's still 18 Banes left, but Kelazhur's still up 70 supply, and a lot of that's just army supply. Oh my, those are the one Marine!
Gee, Vinny Christmas, that's a hero Rambo Marine right there. We salute you, good sir. His death will not be in vain. Kelazhur moving up to the 12 o'clock position now, and honestly, even if Erik's army was almost entirely Banelings, he could be still in a really rough spot here. Kelazhur with twice the army supply of his opponent. This game, moments away from ending, I believe.
I'm gonna put it this way, Creighton. If every single Baneling connects, I think that Kelazhur still wins this. If every single Baneling connects with a decent chunk of these Marines, because there's actually still that much more here for Kelazhur, but that's not even gonna happen. GG. Kelazhur